Today, I'm reacting to Will Tennyson's bulking, diet, and training routine advice, and evaluating whether his training and dieting is actually effective, or whether it stands to be approved from a scientific perspective. At the end of the video, I'll give Will Tennyson a score from 0 to 10 based on how good his diet and training advice is, so stick around. Let's dig into it.
Growing up, I've had a lot of nicknames like the Muffin Man, the Village Bike, Ollie's Cameraman, but one nickname that's on the rise is Will Trenny. Because a lot of people think I'm a fake natty, which is amazing. It means I'm doing something right. I am the biggest, I'm the strongest, I'm the heaviest I've been in like the past 10 years, weighing in this morning at 201 pounds. So today I'm gonna show you guys everything I'm doing with my diet and my training. Let's go. If I'm being honest with you guys, I have not...
Real quick, Will is very, very impressive as a natural lifter. I'm not sure what his height is. I'd have to Google it real quick. Will Tennyson height. But 200 pounds while being relatively lean. He's 6 foot, okay, that makes sense. 200 pounds while being relatively lean at 6 foot is pretty impressive as a natural. I would be very curious to know what he weighed in at on stage. Oh, let's see. Nope, never mind. He is very impressive. I will say he has very good muscle bellies, specifically, where even when he's somewhat higher in body fat percentage, he'll probably look quite nice and good for his body fat percentage. And he's obviously very muscular, so even at 200 pounds now, when I think he stepped on stage, quite a bit lighter than that, he looks extremely impressive. So, very cool.
I have not been tracking my calories. I've been eating what I want within reason, because I want to compete next year, and I don't want to go into my prep feeling like I'm already dieting. For breakfast, we are making a pumpkin protein cake. For the wet ingredients, you're gonna need some canned pumpkin, cashew milk, egg whites, vanilla extract. For the dry ingredients, you need 1 scoop of some protein powder. I'm using cinnamon roll, goes really well with the pumpkin. Some more cinnamon, baking powder, and sea salt. We're gonna mix up the wet ingredients right now. We have our dry ingredients all mixed up, so now we're gonna add the dry to the wet and get everything nice and combined. We're gonna add our batter to a pan here with some parchment paper on it. When it comes to protein cakes, the only thing harder to get down comes from a double dose of Viagra, because they can be super, super dry, but I promise you guys, this cake is so moist, even the weatherman will say it's raining. Oven is preheated at 350 degrees. We're gonna pop it in for like 12 to 15 reps, okay? 12 to 15 reps. Look at that thing, and you get your own little loaf right there. Beautiful. So we're gonna top it off with 1.5 servings of almond butter. Spread the nut right on top of that cake. And now we're gonna frost this thing like it's getting married tomorrow, or I just failed no nut. 1 serving of Greek yogurt of 175 grams. Last but not least, we have our apple diced up. Just drop it from a height. Actually, don't drop, no. It's 755 calories. Pretty good, a lot of volume here. Don't go around telling your friends you're having cake for breakfast, because that's like bragging like you got into high school. It's not the best cake I've ever had, but when it comes to my diet, I don't need to win, I just can't keep losing. Holy shit. If that was like normal protein cake, I probably would have just died. Take a look at how moist this thing is, dude. You can even hear it. Like, listen. Highly recommend you try this recipe out. If not, then I am disappointed in your closed-minded attitude.
Looks like an awesome recipe. I'm personally not into the replacing traditional foods with macro-friendly options. I'd rather someone get a more convenient option, settle as their breakfast typically, and more convenient option, settle as their lunch, and focus more so on including more whole foods rather than trying to emulate one-to-one what they would usually have in a more macro-friendly format. But then equally, I acknowledge that for many people, making health changes is as much about substituting something with as close of a replacement as possible while making it healthier and minimizing that friction as it is about including more whole foods or whatever. I just don't know that most people have the time required every morning to make this, I guess. But yeah, looks like an awesome recipe, and I know he's come up with this cookbook, which I'm sure is very good. But now let's look at his training, which is really what I'm most interested in.
Day number 1 of my 4-day split, chest, back, and biceps. Starting off with the pause bench press. My training runs in 3-week blocks, so it goes 3 sets of 8, 4 sets of 6, and then week 3 is 5 sets of 5. So you'll notice the intensity is going up, but the reps are staying the same. The 3 sets of 8, I did 270, 4 sets of 6 with 280, and then 5 sets of 5 next week with 295. You're adding 5 pounds to each week every single time, so it's just not, it's not all, yeah, it's very confusing.
I'm not sure I follow the math there with 270 to 280 by adding 5 pounds, but hey ho, maybe 5 pounds per side. That progression scheme, totally fine. I do think it's more complicated than it needs to be for someone just trying to build muscle. You could just stay at the same number of reps every single week and try and add a tiny bit of weight or add a rep, and that'd be fine. I do like the fact that he added some sets across the week, where as he got more and more used to a given volume or workload, he added sets, which in general lead to more hypertrophy. But personally, I probably would just keep the reps the same, unless he also had strength goals in mind, where he would want to gradually increase the weight in a sort of linear progression style, and then potentially max out at some point on the bench, or I don't know what. But in general, pretty solid approach. I like the volume addition, an effective amount of volume, 3 to 5 sets in total. Just not sure the rep decrease week to week was necessary. I guess one small upside and downside to this approach is, upside, it can be fun to do something slightly different every week and break through the training monotony and make you train a bit harder. The downside is that it makes tracking progression a little bit more challenging if you're both changing the number of reps, changing the number of sets, and changing the weight you're using every single week. But that's a minor thing. If you want to level up your training, check out MyoAdapt, the app I co-founded to help you apply the science from this channel. It builds evidence-based routines around progressive overload and smart exercise selection, lets you emphasize the muscles you care about, and tracks progress automatically. Train anywhere, at home or in a gym, in as little as 15 minutes, and switch between gyms seamlessly. Head to MyoAdapt.com and use code WOLF for a free 2-week trial. You can also book a free call below to see if we're a good fit. I'll work with you directly to optimize your training, nutrition, and recovery. Big thank you as always to Rascal Apparel for supporting the channel. You can use code WOLF for 10% off their training gear at rascalapparel.com.
I will say, if you guys have not done paused benching or any pause or chest work, I highly recommend it. My chest, you feel it so much more, and I've just noticed a lot of development by just pausing. Now we're moving on to the back. I go chest, back.
So while I agree categorically that pausing in the stretch is probably a good thing, I think the way most people pause on bench, I'm not saying that's Will here, doesn't really do that much for hypertrophy, where almost everyone, at least in a recreational context, kind of sinks the bar in, doesn't really need to produce much force at the bottom, and then after half a second to a second presses back up. If you wanted to use the pause to emphasize the stretch and probably build maybe a bit more muscle that way, what I would do is remain fully in control of the weight, soft touch on the chest, while contracting chest, triceps, front delts, to stay in control of the weight without just letting it sink into my torso and then pressing back up. That might increase hypertrophy compared to not pausing. But overall, bench press technique looked pretty solid. Good control on the way down even, which surprised me. Good amount of weight, decent bar path, pretty solid overall. Definitely good technique by gym standards.
Back, chest, back, alternating. I'm doing dumbbell, chest supported rows. You wanna make sure when you do these, stretch the lats and then come back up. Don't half rep it. When I have something like 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps, and on the last set I feel great, I'll push past 12. I'll just go to complete failure, possibly hit 15 if I can, and then the next week go to 95 pounds. When you're bulking, it's very important that when you're gaining weight on the scale, you're also adding weight in the gym. If you're not adding weight in the gym, that means you're just eating too much food, you're gonna get fat. You wanna put on good quality weight, so make sure everything is going up together.
Solid advice overall. I like his technique on the dumbbell rows, where he's making sure he's getting a full stretch. To be very pedantic for a moment, I don't think the lats are getting a huge stretch in an incline dumbbell regardless, especially with an incline, since your arms are relatively extended position. That means that you're getting even less lat stretch compared to something like a bent over row, where oftentimes you're getting a 90-degree angle between your upper arm and the torso. You're not getting a ton of lat stretch either way. However, I do like the emphasis on not half ripping at the top, because that wouldn't do much. Like the emphasis on failure as well in the last set and really just going all out. That being said, I would probably like to see some partials after failure here. This movement is very, very challenging in the squeezed position at the very top. So oftentimes when you can't quite get those dumbbells all the way up anymore, you still have like 3 to 12 partials left in the tank, even just kelso shrugs or whatever they're called at the end. I would prefer to see someone do those, generally speaking, to get a bit more upper back stimulus out of this movement. But I love the movement overall, and I think it's a solid pick for a session. On the progressive overload stuff, I absolutely agree. I don't think it's quite as fatalistic as he's making it out to be, where if you're gaining weight on the scale but you're not getting stronger in the gym, then you're just getting fat. Because oftentimes, especially as an advanced lifter, you might not be gaining much strength for a month or two at a time, or several months at a time, and then you might get an extra rep or two. And that's kind of how it goes. Doesn't mean your bulk is ineffective, just means it takes a while eventually. But I do think it's a great mindset to have, to always be chasing for an extra little bit every single week.
Now we're gonna go on to the secondary exercises for those muscle groups, starting off with machine chest press, 3 sets, 10 to 12 reps. Usually when you have something like 10 to 12 reps, when you get to the 8th rep and it starts to feel hard, you start to move the weight really fast. Form kind of breaks down because you want to hit that 12 reps. Now I've kind of embraced the burn, the pain, and I maintained the same form, the same tempo the whole way through, and I've noticed much more development instead of just rushing through just to overload. Next thing we are doing is for the lats, we're doing the machine.
Real quick on that note, I think this is one of the hardest skills to cultivate as a lifter, and it's one that kind of separates, I would say, lifetime intermediates from people who are truly able to get to the advanced stage, whatever that means. And that's being able to push to failure, even through the burn, even through the discomfort, and maintaining good technique while using bar speed or movement velocity as the true indicator of being close to failure. Many people will start compromising technique when they get close to failure, start rushing the eccentric, not pausing anymore, and then oftentimes even just kind of like try a half rep, not spend much time trying to get the full rep out, and just call it. Because it was like, it was getting hard, so I stopped. When in reality, the true skill involved here would be staying with the same technique, grinding out the reps one by one, not focusing on the burn, focusing rather on just maximally pushing the weight up as quickly as possible, and using how fast you're actually able to complete the rep with your best effort as an indicator of how close to failure you are. Because those last few reps before you hit failure, they should absolutely burn, but that's not where your focus should be. Your focus should be on trying as hard as you can, and despite that, only completing those reps in about 2 to 5 seconds typically. The last rep before you hit failure should oftentimes take 3 to 7 seconds. That's how long it should truly take if you're pushing to failure. And honestly, in my coaching practice, this is one of the biggest things I tend to hammer home with clients. Because of how important training close to failure is, this is a hugely important skill to acquire. So yeah, I love that you brought it up.
Pull down. Most people think when you do back, the thing that only really matters is getting your elbows as far back as you possibly can. That does matter, but also what matters is getting the stretch at the top as high as you can. Typically rest time, 3 minutes. You don't want to rush it, because if you rush it, you won't be able to lift nearly as much weight as if you just take that extra minute. Check out that.
So, on one hand, based and stretch build. Love that you mentioned the stretch as being really important and often overlooked, and this was 3 years ago, so even more credit there. This was early on in the stretch wave, so respect. The machine isn't the best machine, it's plate loaded, which will take a while to set up. The moment arms involved, if you look at the back of the video, you'll see the resistance is maximized in the shortened position, so definitely worth doing some partials after failure on this to emphasize the stretch a bit more. Finally, when it comes to the advice on rest times, obviously this was 3 years ago, so I'm not going to dock him on this or anything, but I do think that since then literature has changed, 1 to 2 minutes of rest between sets is sufficient, and it's unlikely that that extra rep you get by resting for an extra minute is going to actually improve hypertrophy. That certainly doesn't seem to be the way the evidence is leaning at this stage.
Look at that thickness right there. Focus on heavy compounds. Nothing fancy, not a lot of volume. I'm literally doing like 7 hard sets of chest, 7 hard sets of back twice a week. There's volume, and then there's effective volume. Focus on making the few sets that you actually do matter. And your recovery's better, everything's better. You're gonna get bigger by doing less. Now time.
So, let's start with the bad stuff. Claiming that you're going to get bigger by doing less, probably inaccurate. We do very reliably observe in the literature that doing more volume, all the way up to 30 to 40 fractional weekly sets per muscle, well in excess of Will's 14 sets per week, is going to build more muscle. So that claim on its face is just incorrect. On the flip side, however, 1, that literature wasn't quite as clear yet when this video came out. 2, there's absolutely something to good, high quality volume versus simply adding in more sets and having all of that volume kind of become junk volume. When you're doing a ton of sets, oftentimes you'll start reducing the quality in each set just to get through it. That's called the pacing effect. When you know you have 10 more sets to do, you might not truly push yourself to failure on every single set. Whereas if you're taking a more moderate push like Will is doing here, you might actually be able to push every set a bit closer to failure. And in total, that might lead to similar or even more stimulus than doing a ton of volume if you're not mentally ready for it. So yeah, some good, some bad here.
Time for some biceps. The reason why I like to do it on the wall is because I feel like once I start getting heavier weight, I tend to kind of go like this without really thinking about it. Biceps, triceps, lateral raises are some of those things where pretty much every single set that I do, I'll go to failure. Last exercise of the day for the biceps.
Yep, I like the strict curl variation. It's a little bit better than a traditional curl, just in terms of reducing fatigue and making sure that you're not involving other muscles, so that's great. I would prefer to see something like an incline curl or preacher curl, variations that also make it a bit more challenging to cheat and reduce fatigue, but offer something additional over just the regular standing curl, whether it's extra stretch at the biceps for the incline curl, whether it's more resistance in the stretch for the preacher curl, or in the case of a bench cable curl, for example, one of my favorites, both. But it's still a decent option, for sure. And I appreciate that he's going to failure on every set to maximize stimulus on the sets he is doing.
The biceps is going to be doing single arm cable curls. When I was with Phil Heath and we were talking about like arm training, one of the things he said to me off camera was this exercise, and he said a good cue is pretend like you're actually going to do like a flex, like a pose. Master every single pin that you do before you go up.
This aged a bit poorly considering all the meme exercises Phil Heath has been seen doing recently, which by the way, I don't think really impacts his better advice in the sense that it's almost certainly engagement bait. But yeah, I don't think focusing on the muscle connection like Phil Heath is advocating for here is necessarily going to increase growth. The only study we have on focusing on man-muscle connection versus focusing on getting the weight up, so an external performance-focused cue, found relatively mixed results. Potentially a small benefit in favor of the man-muscle connection, but certainly no home run. So for the time being, I personally still focus on performance-based cues, like getting the weight up, being explosive, training hard, but I can certainly see how focusing on the muscle connection here would have Will feeling his biceps more. Does that mean it builds more muscle? Not necessarily. Good grip. I like the claw grip he has on the knife work. Respect.
It is lunchtime, so I typically have a salad. So I'm gonna show you guys how I make my favorite salad, which is like an avocado, kind of like a taco salad, I'm just gonna call it that. We have ourselves 1.5 avocados that I've diced up. I have a
My god, I like cooking as much as the next man, but I only cook for dinner. Because many of these vlogs have me thinking about how time poor I am. Like, my man's out here preparing a whole ass salad for lunch, which is usually the time where people are in the middle of working and getting like something from cafeteria or what have you. So hey, respect for the nutrition. I wish I had more time.
I have a wad of cilantro. If you guys don't like cilantro, quick little option, don't add it in, okay? So we're gonna add a little, actually a lot of cilantro, holy shit. Then I have 1 cup of some cherry tomatoes. I have this assorted one here. It's 2022, guys. I like an inclusive salad. And then we have a ton of red onion. I'm an engaged man now, it doesn't really matter. We're gonna take half the lime, just squirt her right on top. Oh, she's a juicy one. Hello. A little bit of salt. Now my favorite spice of all time, some cumin, a couple of Spanks, some red pepper flakes, around like half a teaspoon to a teaspoon. The good thing about this salad is that there's lime in here, so if you guys want to pack it for work, the avocado will stay good because it doesn't make it brown, so it just stays nice and fresh. Look at that. Beautiful. So now it's time for the protein portion to add on top. We're gonna be making some fast fried steak, because I like to think there's moments where a quick meat is the best meat, okay? So I have 8 ounces of some thin strips. I'm gonna spray the pan a little bit, just a little bit of
Beef in this economy?
a little bit of soy sauce, and that's it. Calories for the salad is 730 calories. I feel like there's like this common misconception that when you're in a bulk, you don't have to like eat healthy. You just eat whatever the hell you want. That is so not true. Focus on your fruits, focus on your veggies. This is why I like to have a salad during the day, because I like to just get a lot of my veggies in. I had the fruit in the morning. Avocado's a fruit. I feel like you guys are gonna comment that and roast me, but you know what I'm saying. It is so fresh. While I eat this, I'm gonna do some work. I feel like some of you guys are pretty interested in like the whole creating process of a YouTube video.
I might have missed it, but there doesn't seem to be any sort of oil in that vinaigrette, lime-based vinaigrette, which, I don't know, from a flavor perspective, I'm not fucking with. But hey, it looks very healthy, very good. The beef is nice. Yeah. Not much else to say besides I love the emphasis on still getting your micronutrients, your fiber, polyphenols, antioxidants, all that stuff in when you're bulking. And I think that's why sometimes I'm proponing? Maybe that's a verb. Sometimes I'm a proponent of maintaining rather than bulking and cutting, because I think many lifters kind of like get some good habits going on a cut, and they're like, well, I'm bulking. Time to throw all that out of the window, which isn't the best approach. If you want a simpler approach to having your salad instead of doing all that for lunch, you could just bulk prepare a vinaigrette of your choice, make sure that you're not going to get botulism, so look into that. Put it in the fridge, and then buy a ready-made salad, apply vinaigrette, and boom. Takes 30 seconds every time you have to make it.
I showed you guys day number 1 at the gym. I'm gonna show you guys the other 3 days right now. So here's day number 2. Starting off with my favorite movement, the overhead press. So week number 1, you're doing a top set of 5. So we're working up to the heaviest set of 5 for the day. Then reduce the weight by like 20 to 25%, and then bang out 3 sets of 10. Week 2, a top set of 3, and then 3 sets of 8. Week number 3, a heavy single, not like a 1 rep max, but like a training max, and then 3 sets of 6. After that, we're going to the legs. So I'm doing hack squat, 6 sets, 10 to 12 reps. This is for me personally because I had bad knees. I need to like warm up extensively. I've noticed tremendous leg gains by doing a lot of sets, a lot of reps, and less weight.
So, let me just critique the individual days since it seems to be flying through these. Very random routine, which I appreciate given how random routines are to begin with. This seems to be a shoulder, triceps, and leg day. I think I got that right. Overall, overhead press is a fine movement if he enjoys doing it, and he seems to be a bit of a power builder, so I understand that. From a pure hypertrophy perspective, something like a seated dumbbell overhead press or seated machine overhead press might be better, but totally fine. The machine laterals are a good pick to emphasize the side delts a bit more. I wish there was a rear delt exercise in here, because it seems to be a lot of front and side delt, not a lot of rear delts. I think the rep ranges towards the tail end of the workout, 12 to 15, might be a bit high, but I guess he is going quite heavy on his main compounds typically. The only other thing I'd say is leg extensions, not the best pick, and I would probably superset leg extensions with hamstring curls instead of leg extensions with skull crushers. Just seems a bit more practical, and you get the benefit of reducing antagonistic inhibition in the quads by doing hamstring curls. Long story short, by pre-fatiguing the hamstrings going into leg extensions, you might perform a bit better because they're not resisting the leg extension motion. And I might want to see him do something else instead of leg extensions like sissy squats, but whatever. A bit more stretch emphasis. But overall, not bad. Day number 3, let's see it. Incline Smith machine press, neutral pull down, chest fly, T-bar row, incline curl, bicep of choice. Yep, this is pretty solid. 2 chest exercises, 2 back exercises, not doubling down on vertical pulls or horizontal pulls, having one of each. That's good for regional hypertrophy and targeting both lats, teres major, rhomboids, mid traps, low traps. Good work starting off with incline Smith pressing and doing a chest fly variation. The second thing, he could do some flat pressing as a complementary option or a flying variation. Both work very well. The chest press would give him a bit more tricep stimulus, but he does have triceps on other days. 2 bicep exercises, seems fine. Yeah, day overall, good rep ranges. A little bit high overall, I would say, in terms of ensuring solid proximity to failure. Tends to be a bit easier to push close to failure with, say, sets of 4 to 12 rather than always 10 to 12 or 12 to 15, but overall, more than fine, pretty solid.
3, we are back to chest, back, and biceps, starting off with the incline Smith machine bench press. 4 sets, 10 to 12 reps. I love benching, doing any sort of chest movement on the Smith machine. You can grind out a lot more reps, a lot more time under tension than on the free weights. Neutral grip pull down, so holding it this way, not this way. I like to get a lot more weight that way. The T-bar row, 3 sets, 10 to 12 reps. A lot of times I like to do a strip set, kind of remove plates as I go, really burn it out. I have a lot of structure to my routine, but at the same time I keep things open to kind of keep things more fun, because if you could do the same thing every time, it gets very boring. The last and...
Yep, I liked the mention of going closer to failure with Smith machine bench pressing. That is, I would say, the main benefit of Smith machine pressing. A bit of a buzzword situation with the time under tension stuff and the burn it out and whatnot, but whatever, we'll move past that. Let's see day 4 real quick. Leg press 6 sets, fair enough. Seated dumbbell press 4 sets, 10 to 12, remaining deadlift. Yeah, I suppose that's fine. Overall, not a bad day. Personally, I think for most advanced lifters, you'd be better off putting the leg work at the end of the workout. Doing leg press first into a workout for 6 sets is going to kick the shit out of you. And the seated dumbbell press is not going to go that well, nor is the delt and tricep work at the end of the session. I would also probably sequence leg press and remaining deadlifts together so that you kind of get the leg work out the way. And I would keep both of those as the last 2 exercises of the workout. I would probably do seated dumbbell press, then lateral raise, then superset push downs and rear delt cable flies. Nothing wrong with supersetting those 2, although you might find that your shoulders are kind of burning during the tricep push down because you're isometrically keeping your arms in place, using in part your rear delts. So you might find that your shoulders are kind of distracting you during push downs because you're supersetting those 2 movements, but it's not a bad thing at all overall. Across the week, I think quads were given a lot more emphasis with 12 sets total versus hamstrings only 6 sets total, which if that's his goal, fair, but I would consider putting a bit more volume for hamstrings in to even that out. And as a final little nitpicky note, I do think that switching out tricep pushdowns for an overhead extension is probably a better pick. Get a bit more stretch on the long head. And finally, for the rear delt cable fly, I would probably switch that out to a crossover where you're actually getting a full stretch on the rear delt as opposed to just a moderate stretch.
All day of the week, starting off with the leg press. Similar to the hack squat, we were doing 6 sets, 10 to 12 reps. Then we're doing the seated dumbbell press. I hate this movement, which is why I'm doing it. We gotta do things that you hate sometimes. And then we have a superset to finish it off. Tricep push downs, superset with rear delt cable flies. 3 sets, 12 to 15 each. Here's how I split up the 4 days. So on Monday is day number 1, Tuesday is day number 2, then I take a day off on Wednesday, Thursday is day number 3, Friday is day number 4, then I have the weekend off to have some fun and relax. Take what you want from this. I'm no scientist, I don't know shit. I've been making some gains, so again, just take what you want from it.
Yep, I think this routine is firmly in the good enough and will definitely make gains. It's a more moderate volume of around sort of like it seems 6 to 15 sets per week per muscle, which is definitely enough to make gains, and you're kind of not speccing into a super low return on investment sets at the very top end of that range, because ultimately if you want to make more gains, up to 30-40 sets would be better, but this is a perfectly fine approach for many people. I think some elements of the program could definitely be improved, like some elements of exercise selection, some elements of volume allocation where quads had way more volume, hamstrings less so, rear delts were kind of not getting much. The rep ranges also tended to be a bit high for my liking, but overall, honestly, pretty solid.
Just wrapped up 20 minutes on the rower. A common misconception, again, with the bulk is that you stop doing all cardio altogether, but I think the key to staying lean while you're bulking is to keep the activity high. I do Orange Theory like 4 times a week, then I'll come down here, I'll either do like the treadmill or I'll do some rowing for around 20 minutes, and that's really all you need. You don't need much.
Yep, I like that you mentioned overall physical activity as being important. I wouldn't say that that's really the key to staying lean. I think just having some physical activity overall is good for staying lean, but it doesn't need to be cardio. It can literally be going for a walk, some steps outside. It doesn't need to be dedicated cardio, again. I do think doing Orange Theory 4 times a week plus some rowing might interfere with training depending on how it's structured. You definitely want to do that on alternate days or after training as opposed to before training. I think for most people, they'd be better off just going for some walks rather than adding in dedicated cardio when it comes to maintaining a lean physique on a bulk and just making it a bit easier to juggle with actual training as well, without going into the gym feeling drained and compromising hypertrophy.
Time for meal number 3. This is my biggest meal of the day, right around like 1,200 calories all said and done here. Typically I have chicken breast, but now I've really been enjoying some dark meat chicken, some chicken thighs. Dark thighs save lives, guys. Maturing is learning how to open up and expand your horizons to the benefits that dark meat can offer. So we have 10 ounces of some chicken thighs here. All we're gonna do is add some lemon pepper seasoning. Now we're just gonna sear.
Here are some fun facts. The reason it's dark meat is because it's slower twitch fibers that typically get used more. So the reason chicken breast is white meat is because chickens don't really fly much, and so they tend to be much faster twitch fibers, whereas the thighs tend to be dark meat because they're slower twitch fibers, because they tend to walk around all day, and so they get used more, and slower twitch fibers are better suited to low intensity, high activity. Intramuscular fat, therefore juicier meat, also tends to be characteristic of darker meats, because muscles store more intramuscular triglycerides, aka fat, marbling, with slower twitch muscles. So yeah, I agree. Science approved. Woo!
The chicken breast on both sides so it gets crispy and golden brown. Ooh. We're gonna take the chicken off of the pan. It's not fully done, but that's okay. We're gonna add it back in a minute. You guys see all that on the pan right there? Do you see it? You know what that is? You wanna know what that is? That is flavor. I chopped up 2 cloves of garlic. It's going in. Now we're gonna add 1 cup of some chicken broth. This is a bunch of flat leaf parsley. I take around half of it, add it to the broth, and some onto the oven. Take 3/4 of a cup of orzo. Gonna add that in here. Now what we're gonna do is put our chicken back in. So it's gonna be super tender because it's gonna cook the rest of the way in the broth. See how it's boiling right here? We're gonna reduce the heat down to low. I don't have a top for it, so I'm just gonna go old school and go like that. And we're gonna let it do its thing for around 15 minutes, and the orzo should be beautifully cooked, and that is a 1 pot lemon pepper chicken orzo thing. Let's take a look. You might not think there's a lot of seasoning on it, but like the stuff at the bottom of the pan really seasons like the orzo and everything. We're gonna add the rest of the parsley on top because we eat with our eyes, guys. Not all the time, but most of the time. I'm known to go the extra mile, so I like to add a little bit of feta cheese, around like 2 servings of feta cheese, a couple blocks on top. Surprisingly, I have gotten tired of making...
As you'd expect, cooking skills were actually pretty solid. Not sure how I feel about the fond getting a bit too darkened, or the use of a non-stick pan for this meal, but then again, I guess it is more macro-friendly. But yeah, looks like a solid meal. I respect it.
...of making anabolic ice cream every single night, so I had to kind of think of something that gives me that sweet urge later in the evening. So I kind of thought to make rice cake s'mores. It's like a penitentiary kind of like s'mores hack here. We have our 3 rice cakes, caramel corn, 50 calories per. I have Lily's dark chocolate chips, no sugar added. We're gonna evenly distribute 2 servings of those on top of here. I feel like I'm at the campfire right now, hoping a different kind of bear walks in. Now I have some mini marshmallows, evenly again, distribute across the 3. Get on there, you little bastard. Now what we're gonna do is add it to our air fryer at 375 degrees for like 4 to 5 minutes and we're done. It's that simple. The hard part's getting it in here. Oh, oh. Time to slide her in. We're gonna top these off with some banana and some PB2. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like they should call it PB 2.0 to make it seem like it's like elevated, not just like it's like the second best PB2. So we're gonna add 12 grams, mix it with a little bit of water. Getting this to the right consistency is literally a skill. This is the kind of consistency you're looking for so that when you kind of go like this, it kind of goes like that. You know what I mean? It kind of just like does that. Look at my banana emerge. Banana is a fruit that deserves a second life. What can I say? We're gonna go 75 grams. Okay, it's time to pull out on time. There we go. Oh, wow, those look good. This one is gonna be the threesome that I'm gonna ask to go sit on the couch because that one does not look great. Something in my mind is telling me not to do this because I'm gonna F it up, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Oh. Something about s'mores is so nostalgic, but it wasn't even part of my childhood. Oh, baby. The marshmallows are not the only thing rising to the occasion. $505 calories for all three of these. A nice little replacement to kind of switch things up from the old anabolic ice cream. So let's try it out here. Comparing these to real s'mores is like comparing Vin Diesel to Johnny Sins. You gotta put it in your mouth to really know. It's nowhere near the same, but it is still a very good replacement. So the question is, am I natural? Yes, I'm a lot more motivated in the gym, more motivated than ever, and I'm more comfortable with adding weight to the scale. I used to not be very comfortable with that. I know a lot of people watching this video used to be heavier and they've lost a bunch of weight, and now they're trying to build back up, and it's scary to see the scale weight go up. And I know exactly what you're feeling, but just remember, there's a good way to gain weight and a wrong way to gain weight, and you've done the wrong way, but now you know what you're doing. Implement what you know, and the weight is good weight. When I saw 200 pounds, I won't lie to you, it kind of like gave me this wave of emotions, but like, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with my progress in the gym. I feel great. Total calories for the day, 3,190. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
All right, let's give this a rating. First of all, I appreciated that he mentioned it doesn't taste like the real thing. It's just a macro-friendlier way of eating. I don't have the patience of this man when it comes to preparing meals for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack. So even more respect on that front. In terms of training and diet advice, I would give this a solid 6.5 out of 10. Most of the structure was perfectly reasonable. Like, I think someone doing this routine on average will make gains. It's not as though his advice was poor on that level. I think there was some incorrect advice and some buzzwords being used incorrectly, like tanner retention and burn or whatever the hell. But overall, honestly, it was pretty solid. I like the nutritional advice, broadly speaking, as well. As with all vlog type content, I always feel as though there's a slight aspirational component to it. Or like, ain't no chance I'm preparing all that every single day. But hey, he is selling a cookbook now and clearly likes cooking, so there's that. Yeah, overall, I vibe with the content, and the training and diet advice was at least reasonable. But what did you think? Do you think my critiques were on point, or did you think I was being unfair? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in that next one. Peace!